Right, so next step in the process, we've got to consider putting arrow points on, but at the same time we've got to consider the balance of the arrow as well. Now, as I've said before, ideally the perfect balance for an arrow would be one which is entirely neutral, as in right slap bang in the middle. Now, even once you've got the arrowhead on and the fletching and everything, the balance is still in the middle. That would be the ideal, and it is doable. For instance, if I put on 2-inch fletchings, 3 of them, and a plastic knock, that's going to add on average between 15 and 20 grains in weight to the arrow. So, to counteract the weight of the fletching and the knock, you put on a lightweight point, and that's not it. Such as, such as that. That is an 18 grain point. So basically it's a bullet point, a target point, but it only weighs 18 grains. So if you're wanting a really light, fast, flat shooting arrow with which is what a neutral balance will give you, that is what you would go for. Now, if you're shooting indoors, ranges out to about 20-30 yards with moderately powerful bow, like say 30 to 40 pound bow, those are ideal. Again, gives you a nice flat trajectory, fast flying, good target arrow. But anything outdoors, and it's going to suffer. Anything over about 30 yards, and it's going to suffer. Anything where the poundage is getting up into the 50s and 60 pounds, it's going to suffer. And anything quite low poundage as well, it's going to suffer. So they're quite a niche thing. Indoors, short range, ideal. Because that will give you a neutral balance, right slap bang in the centre. Now, for virtually every other form of archery, you're going to have some kind of compromise when it comes to your arrow balance. And the best that I've found is if you go for roughly 1/3 the length of the arrow. You want the balance at about 1/3 of the length, which is about there. Now, so your balance point with these shafts, it's a fairly neutral balance point. I think it's ended up being about a -10. Anything minus is towards the back. Anything positive is towards the front. So it's about a -10mm balance, which is not bad. We want all the way to go towards the back. So what we would do here was we're going to start off with a fairly lightweight arrowhead. I think these are 100 grain. Right, so we're going to put that on first. Now we know where our previous balance point was, that was there. Now straight away I can feel it's completely different. So we're just going to find the balance point. There we go. It's about there, so we'll just hold that in place. Now get me pen. And we shall mark that. And that is the original balance point, I believe. So we'll just remark that so we know what we're looking at. So that's with 100 grain. Now, so I've lost the balance point. Oh, there we go. So there's our original balance point. There's the new balance point, which is about 3.5 to 4 inches. So it's moved it forward, but we're not quite at the 1/3 of the way. We do is going a little bit further forward. So what we'll do is we'll take that 100 grain off. And get something a bit heavy, which is 125 grain. Just pop that on there. Yeah, so again, it's quite heavy. So we shall find the balance point. There we are, and we'll get the pen and mark it, and we'll see what difference that's made, where that's gone. Put the pen back, lid back on so it doesn't run out, like those pens. Right, so, there's our original. There's the one with the 100 grain, there's the one with the 125 grain. Now as you can see, we've brought the balance point a long way forward. 5-6 inches. Right, and it's about a third. So that's not bad. So that is a good practical compromise for balance. Now if we went any further forward, we would possibly be getting into the realms of making the arrow nosedive, which is not good. But if we were wanting to keep that arrowhead and make a completely neutral arrow, which we could do, but it would make for a heavy arrow, we could actually put ballast in this end of the shaft. And the way you would do that is you would carefully drill a hole. I will do a demonstration of this at some point, just at all my gears. But you would drill a hole down the centre of the shaft, very carefully, don't go too far, about 1.5 to 2 inches at most, and then you would add weight into the back of the arrow. Now I've found the best thing to use is the 177 air rifle pellets, which you can nip up a little bit, or the weights that they use to sew into the bottom of curtains to make them hang, come in long strings of lead weights about 2.5 millimeters in diameter and about 5 millimeters long, and they just drop straight in. I haven't got any here to show, unfortunately. But the air rifle pellets weigh between 8 and 10 grains. So you can build up quite a bit of weight in the back end. So if you went with a lighter, like 100 grain, 10 air rifle pellets, which would be about that long, would give you a neutral balance. And that's the ideal. But again, it's compromise. You've got to find out what works for you. Do you want to go to the hassle and the geekiness of putting a ballast weight into the back? Anyway, so there we go. So we're putting on weights to bring, for these shafts, the balance at about a third comes with a 125 grain point, which I think is ideal actually. Any heavier, and you could maybe go up to 135, maybe 140, but you'd be risking nose diving, things like that. Anyway, so on to the next process.